Tonight's top 5 video was requested by OAW patron Khalil Young. Salute to you, sir. And if you have a request for a top 5 list that you would like to see done right here on OAW Entertainment, become a patron. Become a patron at patreon.com/OAW and select the top 5 tier. For just $15, not only do you get your request for a top 5 list, you also get access to all Patreon exclusive content, as well as the OAW Vote, which is the original first 2 seasons of Otaku Assemble Weekly, the anime and manga review web series that kicked off the channel, and you also get an invite to participate in the live Q&A held right here on the OAW YouTube channel, as well as the OAW Facebook page. So once again, that's patreon.com/OAW and select the top 5 tier. And with that being said, this is going to be my top 5 favorite Yu Hakusho characters. Let's get into it.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Greetings to everyone watching live and everyone watching after the fact. Shout out to the faithful and salute to the patrons. This is Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, here to bring you all yet again another top 5 video segment. And this week, we are going to go ahead and discuss, or I'm going to go ahead and give you all my top 5 favorite Yu Hakusho characters. Now, you know what was surprising about this? I hit up my man Khalil and I asked him, I'm like, yo, man, I was like, so originally this was Khalil's request for June, right? And so he was like, yeah, man, do your top 5 favorite Yu Hakusho characters. I'm like, I thought I had already, like, not in an actual top 5 video, but I mean, I'm pretty sure I've discussed, my favorite Yu Hakusho characters at some point, just because I've done so much Yu Hakusho related content. But what's funny about it is this will actually give a chance for some people who might not have seen those other videos yet, which, why haven't you seen those other videos yet? Anyway, this will give you all a chance to pretty much get inside my head here, find out what some of my favorite Yu Hakusho characters are. It'll also give me a little bit, a chance to go into a little bit more detail and discuss these characters a little bit more. And of course, it will provide a concise location to where those thoughts are shared. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Now, I will periodically be checking out the comment section as always, because of course I asked you guys to share some of your top 5 lists, as well as chime in with, your thoughts on my list, of course. But if you want to make sure that your question or comment gets read tonight before the end of the broadcast, you can always leave a super chat, and I'll make sure to read that question or that comment as it comes in. Also, if you feel the need to support the channel, you can also do so via Cash App and PayPal. The link to both of those is in the description box below. So, how's everyone doing tonight? Hope you all are enjoying your Friday. And I think it's time to get started. All right, so real quick. So what was funny about this list is actually picking 5 characters. That wasn't the hard part. The ranking was the hard part. So what's funny about that is, for those of you all who might have seen my other Yu Hakusho related content and heard me talk about these characters before, where they fall on this link, like on this list, where they rank, will probably be a little bit different than what you guys might expect, possibly, but we'll see. All right, and let me go ahead and get my screen share on. All right, yep, there we go. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and let's kick things off with my number 5 pick. So, starting off my list at number 5 for top 5 favorite Yu Hakusho characters is none other than, bam! Yes, my man Hiei. Hiei is my number 5 top 5 favorite character. So, dude, honestly and truly, Hiei made the list just because Hiei is such a badass dude. Of course, Hiei is sort of like I guess you could say the stereotypical, almost token anti-villain, or I'm sorry, anti-hero of the series. He's the loner. He's the just incorrigible badass. He's the Vegeta of the group. or the Wolverine of the group, if you will. But he's still awesome. Hiei is still awesome. And I like how even so Hiei is one of the few characters. He might actually be the only character, I think. Oh no. Well, hang on, let me see. Is Hiei the only villain that we get introduced to in the series that ends up turning into a hero? And I'm trying to think about that because Kurama was never really a villain. And some of the demons that Yusuke and his team fought during the Dark Tournament, they weren't necessarily villains either, which is why it was believable that they would end up becoming comrades later on in the series. But no, I think Hiei might be the only one that was like a bona fide villain that ended up turning into a hero. And of course, done so reluctantly, done so against his will, because when Hiei started working with Yusuke, he was pretty much on I get not probate. Well, technically it was a bit of a probation, but sort of like community service. Um, and then by the time we get to Dark Tournament, every story that involves Hiei it involves him for a personal matter, right? Hiei is personally invested in what's ever going on. And you can see that because notice how involved Hiei was in the story when we were at Tarukane's stronghold, when his sister Yukina had been abducted, and then, of course, throughout the course of the Dark Tournament, and then look at Chapter Black. Hiei is absent for the majority of Chapter Black because he really didn't have much of a dog in that fight, not until, the end. And even at the end, it was sort of more like, well, Yusuke and his team need like everyone they can throw at Sensui and his team, so that's why, Hiei was there. But yeah, my man Bon Miller says right here, he says, yes, Hiei was the only villain to become a hero. Yeah. So but yeah, I mean, I just love Hiei. I love his I love his demeanor. I love his banter with Kuwabara. It's actually it's actually my funniest, some of the funniest and also some of my favorite banter in that series is Hiei and Kuwabara going back and forth because they're just they're just hilarious. And then of course I like Hiei's backstory, and I like how like shrouded in mystery his backstory was throughout the majority of the series. And then even when we do find out about his backstory, there's still a lot of mystery there because there's so like all the major events that happen to Hiei, there are these long lapses in time in between them. So even then, it still kind of feels like we haven't learned everything there is to learn about Hiei. And of course, the way we leave Hiei by the end of the series, I also dug that. Like the notion that him and Makoro were kicking it. Now, I wasn't necessarily convinced that they were like a romantic couple, as it's kind of suggested at the end of the anime. Yeah, I don't necessarily buy that. But then again, if that was ever going to happen with Hiei, it makes sense that it would be Makoro. Just given the characters that we were introduced to in the series, like that kind of makes a little bit more sense. So yeah. But yeah, man, Hiei is awesome. I've always liked Hiei. I liked Hiei since his first introduction. If anything, I was actually kind of surprised Hiei never transformed into his green form with all the eyes. Yeah, I'm surprised he never did that again. But he didn't need to. He didn't need to because once he got that darkness flame, it was over. It was pretty much over. All right. So yeah, so that's why Hiei is my number 5 because he is just straight up awesome. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's move on to my number 4, shall we? All right. So number 4 on my list is my man Yomi. Yeah, Yomi is number 4 on my list. Now that might not be too surprising for some of my viewers who will recall that Saga of the Three Kings is my favorite story arc in Yu Yu Hakusho, and I mentioned one of the main reasons for that is because of Yomi. I really dig Yomi. Here's the cool thing about Yomi, though. I have said it before, or at least I believe I've said it on camera before, but I'll definitely double down on it here. Yomi's not really a villain so much as he's just an antagonist. And that's kind of what I dug about him so much because, like, you can make the argument for Yomi being a villain, but given his motives and the fact that he is primarily driven through ambition, and that it's an ambition of conquest, it's an ambition of, he is his quote unquote unification of Demon World. Really, he's trying to place Demon World under an authoritative government led by him, right? All nations under him, sort of thing. Because Demon World is broken up primarily into 3 territories. Which you know what's funny about that? Because they don't really specify that enough in the series. Because in the series, we're introduced to the quote unquote 3 kings. But if memory serves, because I think it's mentioned in the manga, Demon World is actually, it's not 3 kingdoms so much as it is 3 territories. Because each territory actually includes multiple kingdoms in Demon World. Just for clarification's sake, because Ryzen, Makoro, and Yomi were the kings of kings. Like, they were the top kings. But there were multiple, like, lords underneath them because they all had their own little territories. But essentially, Yomi was like, yeah, I'm going to unify all of Demon World under me. I mean, we pretty much know what that means, right? He wants to instill a totalitarian government. Okay, cool. But I don't see what's actually sinister about that. You know? And then, of course, we know that Yomi's kingdom, I think, is the most technologically advanced one. And we know that he is very much into science. He is very much into technological and scientific pursuits. He is sort of very much in, for lack of a better term, but he is an industrialist. That's the better term, because I was about to say progress, or progression, but industrialist is a much better term. Yeah, he's very much an industrialist. And yeah, so I don't see what's malicious about Yomi. I don't see what's, like, sinister about him. Now, does he manipulate people? Yes, he does. Does he strong arm people and blackmail people and threaten people? Yes, he does. But it's no different than I would expect any other monarch in his position to behave. You know what I mean? Because honestly and truly, the most underhanded thing, I think, in my opinion, the most underhanded thing that Yomi does in the series is when he pretty much creates Shura. Because remember, Shura is his quote unquote son, but really Shura is his clone. He creates Shura to give him an advantage in the Demon World tournament. That's about the most underhanded thing I can think of. Because clearly he was trying to give himself a distinct advantage, because essentially it'd be 2 of him, right? And it's like, how many of these demons can beat 2 of me? Which is why it was very ironic that he had to end up fighting Shura. Take one of them off the board. But other than that, man, I mean, you can say, you could say he did what he did with Kurama, but I mean, Kurama did still have a choice, Of course, Yomi would have retaliated in whatever way he saw fit, but that's just part of the game, That's pretty much it. Because consider this, I think Yomi would have still done the vast majority of the things he had done if Kurama had not agreed to help him in the first place. I think Yomi would have still done what he did. So, but yeah, I don't really consider Yomi a villain in the traditional sense. But like I said, why do I like him? Okay, first and foremost, his design is freaking awesome. I love his freaking design. It didn't dawn on me at first until, dude, honestly, I think it took me like halfway through Saga of the 3 Kings when I really paid attention, because I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Yomi is blind, so he developed super hearing, but that is literally because he has 6 ears. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that sort of makes sense. I'm gonna tell you the one thing that doesn't make sense though. Yomi has a horn in the back of his head. That doesn't make any damn sense. Why would there be a horn there? There is no purpose. Why? So you can imagine he goes through pillows like every night because he has a damn horn in the back of his head. That don't make no damn sense. Why is that there? Dude, I'm pretty sure even a Stegosaurus would be like, bruh, look, that my spikes serve a purpose. I don't know what the hell that horn is. Yeah, that's about it. But other than that, man, like, but yeah, so I dig Yomi's design. I like how, once again, remember, like, even his attire, it's very formal and it seems more modern compared to some of, the rest of the attire throughout Demon World. And then, of course, when we finally do get to see him in sort of like his warrior gi, I mean, even that looks really cool. But yeah, I love Yomi's demeanor. I love the way he operates. I love how much of a tactician he has become versus how he used to be based in his backstory, to the point where he even rivals Kurama. And that I think is the thing that impresses me the most about Yomi. He is as cunning. And I would argue even as intelligent as Kurama. But the difference is, though, Yomi has absolutely no problems whatsoever at being cutthroat and ruthless. See, with Kurama, he almost has to be provoked to do that, right? Like something has to happen to push Kurama to go that far. Yomi does it just as a matter of circumstance. Yomi is very much about, hey man, look, I'm trying to make an omelet. Gonna have to crack some eggs. And you looking like you fixing to get cracked right now. Put some seasoning on it, whip it up. Yeah, man. Yomi has no problem being cutthroat. He has no problem killing people just because. Yeah. So yeah, I like Yomi. He was really cool. And like I said, dude, that whole thing about his ambition being his like main character motivation, I dig that. I always dug that. Always dug that. All right. So number 3 on my list, I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody. I'm pretty sure y'all can see this one coming, but I bet you didn't expect it to be this low on my list. So yeah, number 3 on my list is none other than my man, Shinobu Sensui. Now, Sensui actually is my favorite villain in this series. And with that being said, now you guys know why he and Yomi are placed where they are and why I felt the need to make that distinction with Yomi earlier. Because Sensui is what I would consider, an actual villain. But once again, not only is Sensui my favorite villain, and not only do I think he's the best villain in the series, of course, that's always debate. People always debate between Sensui and and younger Toguro. But and yeah, my man DeJean is right. Elder Toguro is more of a villain than younger Toguro. But even still, like that, like those two are always sort of the ones that people debate, right? But I would argue Sensui is the better villain, and I would even argue I've said this before. Sensui is one of the best villains in shonen anime. He has one of the most intriguing origins, one of the best just stories in general, right? So everything from like his backstory to the inciting incident that changed him, right? His opportunity for change, his arc, everything that goes into that character's, ideology and how that ideology fuels his motives and his actions throughout the course of Chapter Black. I mean, that is some really good work that at the time was not very common, I think, in a lot of shonen anime and in shonen manga. Because usually the only ones that were doing that level of storytelling were all of the big dogs at the time, right? The usual suspects, right? So, and then of course, I think in many ways, Sensui did sort of contribute to a trend that we saw with villains that appeared in other titles later on down the line. I think a lot of them took their nods from Togashi and what he was able to do with Sensui. But it is fascinating. So how come he's my favorite though? Okay, here's a couple of things. First and foremost, Sensui is the perfect foil for Yusuke because he's a former spirit detective. And he is pretty much the embodiment of what could happen to Yusuke, right? So just that in and of itself, like Sensui is he's the anti-Yusuke, essentially, right? And he plays that role very well. But the other thing too is he's smarter than Yusuke, he's more cunning than Yusuke, he's more powerful than Yusuke, and he's more ruthless than Yusuke. So once again, just like the comparison I made between Yomi and Kurama earlier, Sensui is willing to go places Yusuke won't go. And that's what makes him so formidable, right? But then you also have to take in consideration, like I said, Sensui's ideology and how Sensui's character in his inception, right? Like originally, how he was so much of a black and white. He was such a binary thinking individual that the first time when he bears witness to the pretty much the great contradiction, right? The nuance that he didn't know existed, right? It was so damaging to his psyche. He had to develop 7 different split personalities just to be able to cope with the trauma, right? But guess what? Even with having gone through said experience, right? Having gone through said trauma, and then of course developing those personalities, he still ended up becoming a binary thinking individual. He just did it on the opposite side. So like that journey that since we had to go through, I think is fascinating. And I'll be honest, part of me does wish because so much of this we get through like backstory and Sensui sharing this information with Yusuke. I kind of wish we would have seen more scenes with just Sensui and his team or with Sensui by himself. Um yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Part of me wishes we had not been introduced to the 7 personalities until that fight. Now, the interesting thing about it is, because I believe, I forget Sensui's like number 2, right? Like his second in command. I forget his name, but I think he does mention that Sensui goes in and out of his personalities. So it is suggested that we were introduced to some of the other personalities earlier in Chapter Black before we realized what was actually going on. And I mean, I could make an argument for that. I would really have to like go back and look at like an episode guide to tell you exactly when each like which personality and when they appeared, right? Because there is some argument for that. So like for an example, the scene in the square, in the city square, when they see Sensui for the first time, that was a different personality. When Kuwabara was abducted, that was a different personality. Um, and then I think it's also mentioned that when Sensui recruits some of the members of his teams, it was different personalities. So there's some argument for that. Itsuki, yeah, there we go. Itsuki, yeah. But anywho, but yeah, like yeah, Sensui hands down um is one of, if not the most fascinating character in Yu Hakusho. And he's definitely one of the most fascinating villains. Um He's really, really interesting. Like I said, my only real criticism about Sensui, technically isn't even his fault, and that's during the Yusuke Sensui fight, the whole sacred energy thing. Because, like I said, conceptually, I think sacred energy makes sense, like the way it's explained. But what Sensui's able to do with it, I still call shenanigans on. So I still call shenanigans on that. Anywho. All right, so let us proceed with number 2. Actually, I got to take one more swig of my water. Doing a lot of talking, getting dry mouth. All right, so number 2. I'm curious. Can anyone figure? Can anyone figure out who my number 2 is? I'm curious. Just real quick. Dump them in. I'll shout out everybody who can figure out my number 2 in the next 15 seconds. You guys are on the timer. Let's see who all can figure out my number 2. 10 seconds, guys. Nobody. Okay. All right. Never mind then. I'm just going to proceed with my number 2. All right. Yeah. So number 2 on my list of my top 5 favorite Yu Hakusho characters is none other than Master Genkai. I love Genkai. Genkai is very easy. I've said this on camera before. Genkai is very easily my favorite anime mentor. I love Genkai. I've always been a fan of Genkai. Yeah, she is hands down my favorite anime mentor. I love her. I love just about everything about Genkai, right? So down to well, first and foremost, her backstory is very interesting, especially once once it's revealed and when we learn about her prior relationship with Toguro and things like that. Like that, I thought was really interesting. And also a little bit unexpected. Unexpected. But given Genkai and the status that she had within that supernatural world, it makes sense, like it makes sense that she sort of cut her tooth, making a name for herself as a, supernatural combatant in the dark tournament and things like that. But just that idea that Genkai won the dark tournament before, I thought was really, really interesting. And of course, she is the main reason why the dark tournament for Yusuke becomes so personal. Genkai's backstory is really cool. But I love her relationship with Yusuke. I love her relationship with Yusuke. I love the way she trains him, the way she mentors him. Her advice is phenomenal, and I love it. Dude, Genkai is just so raw. She's so raw. She's so real, and Genkai does badass old lady really, really well. I feel like she wrote the book on it. She don't take shit off of nobody, especially fucking Yusuke. She tells it like it is. No frills. Facts before feelings. I'm trying to think of course. Okay, I'm trying to think of some Genkai quotes that I really like. Of course, my favorite one is when she is teaching Yusuke the spirit wave during the dark tournament, and so she tells Yusuke to fire his spirit gun, and she was telling him like, oh well, like you're not using all of your power, you could, your spirit gun could be so much better. And Yusuke says, well, why don't he's like, well, okay, grandma, why don't you show this young whippersnapper how it's done? And Genkai just walks in front of him, and she says, gladly, you condescending smart ass. And then, of course, there's the scene where Genkai shoots a spirit gun, and it's like fucking massive, and it like destroys this fucking mountain. And that's one of my favorite ones. But like I said, dude, it's the lessons. So probably my favorite lesson that Genkai gives Yusuke, surprisingly enough, Yeah, my favorite quote is when she's teaching him the spirit wave, but my favorite lesson from Genkai is the House of Four Dimensions at the very start of Chapter Black. When Yusuke is abducted by the three mysterious teenagers and Kuwabara, Kurama, Hiei, and Botan have to rescue him, and the entire house is set up, with booby traps and whatnot, and the characters have to proceed through each one of those territories, and that's how we get our introduction into like the territories and how those powers work and how they operate within those realms. And when you find out that Genkai was responsible for the whole thing because it was a test, when she starts breaking down why and how, like why she did what she did and how those teams were able to pull off what they did, and pretty much the lesson to Yusuke is like, you won the dark tournament, you're the dark tournament champion, great, but there's still a lot that you need to learn. And just because you've defeated the strongest demon there is up to that point that we knew of, you can't just go into any battle off of brute strength alone, because you don't always know what your enemies are capable of. You don't always, and because of that, that is like that, like turning like that, taking your adversaries for granted, right? That's pretty much what it is. Not considering everyone a threat. um yeah, that's what it is. So she's trying to teach Yusuke how to become a better detective and more a more savvy combatant, right? But yeah, I just love that. I love that because the funny thing about it was, while the lesson was mainly for Yusuke, she kind of broke down everybody. Like she told Kuwabara, she told Hiei, she told Kurama, everything each one of them did that that was wrong in that scenario. And she's like, yeah, you guys were quote unquote successful, but clearly that was luck, and luck will not always be on your side. So, but yeah, I love Genkai. Genkai is awesome. She's amazing, and yes, of course, the whole Genkai's death during the Dark Tournament. Yes, that was a sad and traumatic moment for all of us. I, it got me in the feels, just like I'm sure it got everybody else. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, so that's why Genkai is. But yeah, so yeah, that's why she's number 2 on my list. She's a good mentor. She definitely does. I mean, I could make the argument that her and Yusuke have like a surrogate mother-son relationship, or at least a surrogate grandmother grandson relationship, right? But yeah, her tough love. I appreciate it. Genkai is awesome. She's awesome. All right, so I tell you guys what, I actually don't have any honorable mentions in this list, just because Yu Yu Hakusho is one of those, as I've mentioned before, it's my favorite anime, and it's one of those rare animes where there aren't really characters I dislike, and I like just about everybody. Um, I mean, I didn't go, out of my way to make an honorable mentions list. I can throw out a couple just offhand. So of course Yusuke, Kuwabara, um, Shizuru. That's one I bet y'all. I bet you didn't think I mentioned her. Kuwabara's sister, Shizuru. I love her. She is she's hilarious. I love Kuwabara's sister. She's funny. For many of the same reasons I like Genkai so much. Just the way she's written and her dialogue and her banter is really cool. Um, and let's see who else. Keiko, Kawinma, of course. Chu. Um, Yeah, let me see. Well, of course I like, of course I like Toguro. Granted, I like elder Toguro better than younger Toguro. Once again, because he's just a creepy ass little bastard. But he actually is sinister. He's a really good villain. Elder Toguro, yeah. Let's see. What's some other characters? Just honorable mention. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I'll throw Makoro. Oh, okay, Makoro and Ryzen. Because I really do. I really do. I tell you what, if I was going to make an honorable mention, Ryzen would probably be like number 6 on my list. Like he would probably be my first honorable mention because I really love Ryzen. Granted, we don't get enough time with him, of course, but like his legend is one of the things that's the most intriguing thing about him. And I do like his freaking character design too, because it's kind of cool. Like the long white hair, and then he has like the part on one side of his face, and the other side is like tattooed. It's it's kind of creepy looking. It's kind of creepy looking. I dig it. I dig it. So yeah. All right, guys. So as of course, I'm pretty sure all of y'all know who my number 1 is because I did a whole favorite heroes, favorite villains, where he was my favorite hero. Talked about it multiple times. My favorite episodes are mainly predominantly his episodes. And you'll notice he wasn't mentioned in my honorable mentions. That is my man, Kurama. Or if you prefer Yoko Kurama, or if you prefer Suichi Minamoto, either one, my man Kurama, number 1 all time favorite Yu Hakusho character. He always has been. I love Kurama. Like I said, I love Kurama for so many of the other reasons that I mentioned with some of these other characters on this list, right? I love how intelligent he is. I love that he's a master tactician and strategist. I love that he has a duality in terms of his nature, because of course he is a spirit fox turned human, or a spirit fox in a human vessel, but he does very much have his demon persona as well as his human persona. And you know what? I would actually argue. No, you know what's funny about that? Kurama actually has sort of like the Superman thing, where there are like 3 different personas. So there's his, like I said, there's Yoko Kurama, which is his demon persona. There's Suichi Minamoto, which is his human persona, and then Kurama is his actual self, which is sort of like a mix of the two. Because I've always sort of made that same thing with Superman, right? Where it's like you have Kal-El, Clark Kent, and then Superman is somewhere in the middle. Or if you prefer, Superman, Clark Kent, and Kal-El is the one in the middle. However you want to, whichever one you want to do. And no, Batman doesn't have the same thing because Batman actually is Bruce Wayne really is Batman. But anywho, so like I said, yeah, dude. So yeah, Kurama, he's the brains of the operation. He's clearly the smarts of the team. It shows. But then he is also one of the most compassionate, one of the most endearing. I would even argue one of the most like inspirational. Now granted, yes, many of those things I just mentioned apply to Kuwabara as well. I would probably say Kuwabara is the most of all those things I mentioned, but Kurama shares those as well, which is really, really cool. On the flip side of that, though, like I mentioned before, if you piss him off, he is one of the coldest mofos in the series. He is cold blooded. He a bad boy now. Yeah, don't forget what he did to Elder Toguro now. Kurama ain't to be fooled with, bro. That's all I'm gonna say. He ain't to be fooled with. So and then of course, we saw what happened, after Sensui killed Yusuke, how Kurama responded to that, man. Dude, Kurama ain't to be fooled with. The boy is a G. And like I said, my top 2 favorite episodes in the whole series heavily feature Kurama. The picture from the House of 4 Dimensions, the picture that I used of Kurama is from the episode where he has the game of words, the word game, when they were in the House of 4 Dimensions. and they were in the first territory, and how he was able to win that whole thing, dude, that's one of my favorite episodes, and it's one of my favorite chapters in the manga as well, dude. It's hilarious. I love it so much. And like I said, arguably my favorite, because the other one that I kind of go back and forth about which one's my favorite, which one do I like more than the other, is the Kurama's game with Game Master, when they're playing essentially they're playing Tetris, but it's part of Goblin City when Kurama takes over. And of course, if you will recall, that episode is Kurama pretty much revealing to Game Master um what will happen to him if he loses the game, how Sensui manipulated Game Master for that purpose, how he intended Game Master to get knocked off, and the implications of that. Like that, dude, it is a very tense, it is a very cerebral episode. I would argue it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, of course, because I think most people, who'll run across this or whatever, they'll see it's animated, and of course, oh, it's animated, it's not real, they won't take it seriously. But for us anime and manga fans who take these stories on their own merit and actually consider them art, because that's what the fuck they are. But anywho, yeah, for those of us who appreciate this work, we understand the implications of what's happening in that story. And as my man Obey Anime just said, that Game Master fight was dark as hell. Yeah, it's pretty fucking dark. It's pretty dark when you realize what is actually happening in that episode. So that's why I say it's arguably one of my favorite ones. I'm sorry, it's arguably my favorite one. That one and the one in the House of Four Dimensions. But yeah, both heavy Kurama episodes, and that's just because Kurama, #Kurama is the man. Yeah. All right. So that is pretty much wraps up my top 5 favorite Yu Yu Hakusho characters. One more time for the people in the back, we will go ahead and we will recap. Let me click over. Come on, man. I just had the see now it's being difficult. I just had it pulled up on. All right, screw it. We'll click on back through. All right, so real quick, let me go ahead and pull my banners back up. All right, so recap. Number 5 on my list was Hiei, mainly because he is just a badass, and everyone loves a little badass. A badass with a Napoleonic complex. But yeah, we all love short little bastards, or short little badasses. Excuse me. All right. Number 4 on my list is Yomi, just because Yomi is my favorite antagonist in the series. Brilliant foil for Kurama. He is a character of heavy ambition, and yeah, he plays a big game. He plays chess when other people plays checkers, and that's why I love him so much. All right, so number 3 on my list was Shinobu Sensui, because he's my favorite villain in the series. He is a fascinating character study, especially as Yusuke's predecessor and as his perfect foil, the dark side of the profession of a spirit detective, and everything that comes along with it, leading up to a very real, scary, apocalyptic genocide. That is the end game for Sensui, and it makes him such a formidable adversary. Yeah, so that's why he's number 3 on my list. Number 2 on my list is Master Genkai, because she is my favorite anime mentor character. That's another list that I probably should do at some point, is top 5 favorite anime mentors. But I just gave away number 1, so I don't even know if y'all would tune in for that one. But I think y'all would be surprised with some of the ones on that list. But yeah, Genkai is my favorite anime mentor. I love her character. I love her banter. I love her spunk. I love that she don't take no shit off nobody, especially Yusuke. I love her relationship with Yusuke. I love how hard knocks she is. She very much comes from the school of hard knocks, and those knocks keep coming. And if you give her lip, she will throw some hands. Love it. And then last but certainly not least, my favorite, number one favorite all-time favorite Yu Hakusho character is my man Kurama, aka Yoko Kurama, aka dang, I forgot his name. I forgot his human name that fast. Wow, because I am getting tired. I've been talking for 45 minutes. Suichi Minamoto. But yeah, Kurama, like I said, he's the brains of the operation. He's the master tactician, and he's cold-blooded as hell if pushed. So that's why he is number one on my list. All right, guys. So yeah, like I said, I am coming up on 46 minutes. So unfortunately, I can't make this one too long, guys. I actually got to get up out of here, but I want to take this opportunity to once again thank my man Khalil Young. Thanks so much, dude, for continuing to support the channel via Patreon. Dude, it's much appreciated, dude. In many respects, man. Khalil, it's so funny, dude. I went back and I looked at all of the top fives I had done this year. Cause the thing was, man, top five was a segment that kind of vanished for a while, you know? And dude, your requests, your continued support and your requests brought the segment back, you know, like full-fledged. So yeah, man, once again, shout out, salute to Khalil. Thanks so much for continuing to support the channel. Thanks so much for continuing to be a patron. Thanks so much for the great requests, man, because I've been getting some really, really interesting requests from you. Thanks so much. Also want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who decided to join me live. Thanks everyone for joining me live. Thanks everyone for watching after the fact. As always, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Share on social media. Share this link. It's always appreciated. It always helps out the channel. Once again, for you all, we didn't get any super chats tonight, but if you want to support the channel, you can always do so via Cash App or PayPal. The links to those are in the description box below. And as I mentioned, if you want to support the channel but can't do so fiscally, sharing the link on social media, liking, leaving comments, all of that helps tremendously. I can't stress that enough. It helps so much. You guys don't even know how much. All right, so I am going to go ahead. Oh, real quick, final reminder to you all. If you guys have requests for a top 5 list that you want to see me tackle, whether that's a top 5 favorites of my own, or if y'all want to put me through the agonizing pain of having to come up with a top 5 best anything, any one of those, you can go ahead and you can submit a request by becoming a patron at patreon.com/OAW and selecting the top 5 tier. Once again, for only $15, not only do you get your request for a top 5 list, but you also get access to all Patreon exclusive content. You get access to the OAW Vault, which is the collection of Otaku Assemble Weekly, the original anime and manga review web series that kicked off the channel way back when. We talking 10 years ago now, right? 10 years ago, right? That exclusive collection is only available on Patreon, so you get access to that. And you also get an invite to join in on the monthly Q&A that is held right here on the OAW YouTube channel and the OAW Facebook page, all for just $15. So once again, that is patreon.com/OAW and select the top 5 tier. Unless you guys see another tier that you want, whether it's a discussion of the week, anime review, manga review, TV review, movie review, what have you, I have tiers for all of those as well. Once again, that is patreon.com/OAW. So, so time for me to get out here, guys. Keep an eye out, of course. I'm going to be back on Monday with another. We have a movie review on Monday. Yep, we have a movie review this Monday. And then, of course, next week, I have another anime review for you all. And then next Friday, another top 5 for you all. So Keep an eye out. Stay tuned. With that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off. And until next time, peace.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?